We live in a world obsessed with outcomes: promotions, profits, followers, fame. But here's the truth: none of that truly matters unless you know why you're doing it. The most successful, fulfilled people in this world didn't begin their journey with a goal. They began with a cause. People don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. Your why is your anchor. It's your internal compass that keeps you grounded when things fall apart. When you're lost, when you're tired, when the applause fades, your why is what keeps you going. But here's the thing. Most people don't ask themselves the hard questions. Why do I wake up in the morning? Why does this work matter to me? Who am I really serving? When you can answer those questions honestly, that's when your life begins to shift. Leadership isn't about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. It's about creating a culture where people feel safe, valued, and inspired. If you want to lead, if you want to inspire, you must first learn to serve. You don't need to be the loudest voice in the room. You need to be the clearest, the most authentic. You need to be the one who believes in something so deeply that others can't help but believe too. Remember, energy is contagious. Inspiration is a ripple effect. When you live and lead with purpose, you give others permission to do the same. You stop chasing success and start attracting it. In the end, it's not about how much you've earned. It's about how many lives you've touched. That's the real legacy. That's what lasts. We've all heard people talk about their values: integrity, honesty, respect, loyalty. But values are not slogans. They're not the words painted on office walls or printed at the bottom of an email signature. Real values show up in behavior, especially when it's inconvenient, difficult, or costly. It's easy to talk about what matters to us when things are going well, but it's in the moments of stress, pressure, or temptation that our true character reveals itself. And that's when people start to decide whether we can be trusted, not by our words, but by our actions. Trust is not demanded. It is earned slowly through patterns of behavior that prove consistency. You can't inspire loyalty by telling others to believe in you. You earn loyalty when others observe you living by a standard that never changes, even when no one is watching. When your values are embedded into your smallest decisions, into how you treat people behind closed doors, and into how you respond when things go wrong, you build a kind of credibility that no title or role can replace. People are always watching, not with suspicion, but with curiosity. They want to know if they can rely on you, if your promises hold weight, if your leadership is rooted in something deeper than ambition. When they see that your choices consistently reflect what you say matters, trust begins to grow organically. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not built by grand gestures, but by small, intentional acts that align with who you claim to be. One of the most dangerous things you can do as a leader, or even just as a human being, is to talk about values you don't truly live by. Because when there's a gap between what you preach and what you practice, people don't just lose trust in you. They begin to question everything around them. Inconsistency breeds doubt, and doubt, over time, erodes connection. But when people feel safe in your consistency, when they see you walking the talk, something powerful happens. They start to follow not just your instructions, but your example. In the end, people don't follow perfection. They follow authenticity. They follow those who have the courage to stand by their values even when it's inconvenient. That's where trust is born. Not in the moments where it's easy to be ethical, but in the moments where no one would notice if you weren't. When you live your values out loud, you don't need to convince anyone to trust you. They just will. We often assume that the world pays attention to what we create, the product we launch, the service we offer, the skill we bring to the table. But in reality, what people are most drawn to isn't what we do. It's why we do it. The most successful brands, leaders, and movements aren't built on superior offerings. They're built on meaningful intentions. People don't fall in love with a product. They fall in love with the story, the mission, the belief behind it. Think about it. Two people could be doing the same exact job, selling the same service, or sharing the same message. Yet one of them inspires a following, while the other struggles to gain traction. Why? Because one is driven by purpose and people can feel it. Purpose has a pulse. It creates emotional resonance. It tells people, this is more than business. This is a belief, a cause, a commitment to something bigger than me. In today's noisy world, attention is expensive, And authenticity is rare. People have learned to tune out sales pitches, social media noise, and polished perfection. But what they do respond to is genuine belief. When your actions are anchored in purpose, people sense it without you having to declare it. They see the way you show up, the way you speak about your mission, the way you treat those around you. And it makes them feel something. And when people feel something, they remember. They connect. They care. Purpose is what builds loyalty in a world obsessed with attention. A product might bring someone to your door, but purpose is what makes them stay. It builds a bridge between your values and their values. It says, I see the world the way you do. I care about what you care about. And when that happens, the relationship becomes more than transactional. It becomes transformational. People stop being customers or followers. They become believers, advocates, part of your tribe. This is why purpose matters more than presentation. The most polished pitch can't compete with a passionate one. When people feel that you're not just in it for gain, but for a reason, they begin to lean in. They don't just buy your service or idea. They buy into you. That's where real connection begins, not with strategy, but with sincerity. Not with a product, but with a purpose. In a world that often rewards the loudest voice in the room, it's easy to assume that charisma is the key to influence. But the truth is, charisma without clarity is just noise. People may be momentarily impressed by how confidently someone speaks, but lasting influence is built by those who know exactly what they stand for and communicate it with simplicity and precision. Clarity cuts through the confusion. It tells people, this is where we're going, and this is why it matters. And when people understand the message, they can choose to follow it with full conviction. Charisma can attract attention, but clarity earns trust. The most compelling leaders and changemakers aren't necessarily the most dramatic or charismatic. They're the ones who speak with purpose. Their strength lies in how clearly they articulate a vision that others can believe in. They don't need to raise their voice to be heard. Instead, their message resonates because it's grounded in something real, something understood, something deeply felt. When people know exactly what you mean and why you mean it, they begin to align with it, not out of persuasion, but out of shared belief. Many organizations and individuals struggle not because they lack energy or enthusiasm, but because they lack clarity. They try to be everything to everyone, hoping to impress. But in doing so, they dilute their message. If you don't define yourself, the world will do it for you. That's why clarity is so powerful. It allows you to set the terms. It allows you to lead from intention, not from reaction. And in times of uncertainty, people don't want more passion. They want direction. They want something steady they can hold on to. When a message is clear, it becomes repeatable. It travels faster, it spreads deeper, and it mobilizes others to act. Clarity becomes a compass, not just for the one leading, but for everyone around them. In teams, families, and communities, clear communication fosters alignment. People stop guessing. They stop hesitating. They start taking ownership because they understand exactly what they are contributing to and why it matters. Clarity removes friction. It creates momentum. The leaders who endure, the ones who build cultures that last and movements that matter, are those who never traded clarity for popularity. They made tough decisions, not always exciting ones. But because they were clear, they were trusted. They may not have dazzled every crowd, but they made every word count. And in the end, it's the quiet certainty of clarity that turns ideas into action and action into legacy. Leadership isn't a position. It's not a title printed on a business card or a name on an org chart. Leadership is a responsibility, one that starts the moment you decide to care about the people you lead more than the power you hold. At its core, leadership is about service. It's about showing up for others in a way that makes them feel seen, heard, and safe. It's not about control, it's about contribution. True leaders ask, how can I help others grow? Instead of how can I make them work for me? Too many confuse leadership with authority, but people don't follow authority. They follow those who look out for them. The best leaders understand that their role is to serve the team, not to be served by it. They're not focused on being in charge, but on taking care of those in their charge. They create environments where people can thrive, take risks, and express their ideas without fear. That kind of culture doesn't happen through fear or force. It's built through trust, empathy, and intentional care. Service-based leadership requires humility. It asks you to put ego aside and listen. not just to what's being said, but to what's being felt. It means being approachable, accessible, and emotionally aware. It means leading with compassion instead of commands, and influence instead of intimidation. A servant leader isn't weak. They're strong enough to prioritize others, strong enough to protect their people, and wise enough to know that their real power lies in empowering others. When people feel supported instead of scrutinized, they don't just complete, they commit. They give more of themselves because they feel part of something meaningful. Service creates loyalty. It builds bonds that can't be broken by tough times or setbacks. When leaders consistently serve with integrity and care, they inspire teams to perform not out of obligation, but out of shared purpose. That's when work stops being transactional and becomes transformational. Real leadership means asking better questions. What do you need from me? How can I help you succeed? What's getting in your way and how can I remove it? It means showing up every day not to be the hero of the story, but to help others become heroes in their own. When you lead by serving, your impact extends far beyond your role. You create a ripple effect of courage, trust, and collaboration, one person at a time. Growth begins the moment we stop avoiding ourselves. And yet, most people spend their lives running from the questions that truly matter. Not because they don't want the answers, but because they're afraid of what those answers might reveal. Why am I doing this? Who am I trying to impress? What am I willing to sacrifice for what I claim to believe in? These are not easy questions, but they are the questions that lead us to clarity, courage, and conviction. It's easy to follow routines, to stay busy, to check boxes and keep moving. What's hard is to pause and look inward, to challenge your own motives, to question whether the life you're building aligns with who you really are. Most people avoid this level of reflection because it requires honesty, and honesty often demands change. But leadership, real leadership, begins with self-leadership. If you're not brave enough to confront your own truth, how can you expect others to trust your direction? The hard questions aren't meant to tear you down. They're meant to strip away the noise. When you ask yourself, what legacy am I building? Or am I doing this because it matters or because it's expected of me? You begin to uncover your actual why. These answers don't come quickly. They emerge in quiet moments when you step away from external validation and listen to your own internal compass. In that space, you don't find perfection, you find alignment. And alignment creates power. Many people chase success only to arrive and feel empty. Why? Because they never asked if the ladder they were climbing was leaning against the right wall. When you don't ask the hard questions early, you're forced to ask even harder ones later. That's why reflection must become a habit, not a crisis response. Regularly questioning your path isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of integrity. It means you care enough to get it right, even if it means slowing down to do so. Asking yourself hard questions doesn't mean you'll always have clear answers, but the willingness to go there, to confront what's uncertain, uncomfortable, or even painful, is the mark of someone who's committed to growth. You don't have to have it all figured out, but you do have to be honest about what's guiding your steps. Because in a world full of distractions, asking the right questions is how you find your way home to what truly matters. Leadership doesn't begin when you get a title. It begins the moment you choose to take responsibility for the impact you have on others. You don't need permission to lead. You don't need to wait to be promoted. Real leadership is not a rank, it's a behavior. It's how you carry yourself when no one is looking. It's how you respond when the pressure is high and the credit is low. The greatest leaders don't point fingers. They extend hands. They don't sit above their team. They stand beside them. People may listen to what you say because of your role, but they follow who you are because of your example. Anyone can delegate tasks or give orders, but not everyone inspires trust. Not everyone models the discipline, compassion, and consistency they expect from others. The most influential leaders show others what excellence looks like in real time. They arrive early. They own their mistakes. They treat everyone with respect, not just the ones who can offer them something in return. When a leader lives the values they preach, they create a culture of accountability without needing to micromanage. It becomes natural for others to rise to the standard they see modeled every day. No one wants to be told what to do by someone who doesn't live by the same rules. But when people see their leaders striving, struggling, and showing up with integrity, they are moved to do the same, not out of obligation, but out of admiration. Leadership by position relies on authority. Leadership by example relies on character. The first may get people to comply, the second inspires people to commit. There's a world of difference between someone doing their job because they have to, and someone doing it because they believe in the person they're doing it for. People follow what's real. They follow what's felt. When your team sees you consistently choosing courage over comfort, service over self-interest, and truth over popularity, that's when loyalty is born. The most powerful kind of leadership creates more leaders, not more followers. And that only happens when people see someone worth modeling. Someone who doesn't demand respect, but earns it. Someone who doesn't lead from the top, but from the front. When you lead by example, you give people more than instructions. You give them inspiration. You remind them of what's possible. And in doing so, you build something far more enduring than a team. You build a culture. We often think of legacy as something we leave behind, a summary of our achievements, titles, or accolades. But real legacy isn't measured by what you collected. It's measured by who you lifted. It's not about how much you were known, but how much you were felt. Legacy is the quiet trail of impact that remains in people's hearts long after your name fades from the conversation. It lives not in headlines, but in human lives. And that kind of legacy can only be built through intention. You don't need to be rich, powerful, or famous to leave a legacy. You just need to be generous with your presence, your principles, and your purpose. Every time you choose to help someone when it's inconvenient, every time you encourage someone when they're unseen, every time you stand up for what's right, you're writing your legacy in real time. It's not something you plan for after success. It's something you build through small moments of meaning every single day. Too many people chase recognition, believing that impact will follow. But recognition is fleeting. The applause dies down. The spotlight moves on. What stays is how people felt because of you. Did you listen when it was hard? Did you care when it wasn't required? Did you lead with compassion even when no one was keeping score? The people who leave the greatest legacies never set out to be remembered. They simply lived in a way that was impossible to forget. The irony is, the more we focus on service, the more we become significant. Legacy is not about shaping history, it's about shaping people. The kind word you said that lifted someone in their darkest moment, the decision you made to protect someone's dignity when no one else would, the belief you had in someone before they believed in themselves. These are the fingerprints of a legacy that no resume can capture. These are the moments that define a life. When you operate from a mindset of impact, everything changes. Your goals become bigger than yourself. Your vision extends beyond this month. This year, this quarter, you start building not just for results, but for ripple effects. Knowing that the seeds you plant today may grow into trees, you'll never sit under. And that's the beauty of true leadership. It's not about being remembered. It's about making sure someone else remembers what they're capable of because of how you showed up. Every day you have two choices: to exist or to lead, to go through the motions or to go deep. Leadership isn't found in your role, your RA sum A, or your recognition. It's found in the quiet decisions you make when no one is watching, in the way you treat people who can't repay you, in how you carry your values when they cost you something. This world doesn't need more noise. It needs more clarity. It doesn't need more control. It needs more courage. People are not looking for perfection. They are looking for someone real. Someone who doesn't just say the right things but lives them. Someone who inspires not through charisma, but through character. So lead not by commanding attention, but by giving it. Serve not to be remembered, but to make others feel seen. And live not to chase legacy, but to create impact. Because in the end, the most powerful thing you can leave behind is someone better because you led them well.